How's it going? Welcome to the first ever Trades and Grades Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Wright, joined by Camden Gongwer and Caleb Nemi. We're going to go ahead and give us a little rundown of who we are, how we started fantasy football, what we're doing in our lives, just so you guys can figure out a little bit more about us. I'm currently in college, about to graduate here in May with an accounting degree. I got to study for the CPA this summer and hopes to pass that by the fall. I started fantasy football probably, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago, sometime in high school. Started that off. I've loved fantasy football ever since. Just did redraft. In this past year, I started doing Dynasty. Camden actually got me into it, so we started a home league. And since then, I've just been hooked. So pretty much join any kind of leagues I can within reason, and wanted to start a podcast and just talk more about it because I just love fantasy football so much. So, Caleb, Camden, why don't you go ahead?
I'll go next. I'm Camden. I did the same path as Noah, but I came before him, so he's following in my footsteps. I did graduate, and I just did pass all the CPAs. And we both played golf too. Well, I did, but funny, he said that I got him in Dynasty, and Caleb Nemi got me in Dynasty. But I've been playing fantasy football since 5th grade, I want to say. So it's been forever for me, and I've done lots of different types of leagues, but Dynasty is my favorite for the strategic purposes.
Yeah, I guess I'm last, but my name's Caleb. Not as smart as these other two. I went for marketing, so didn't have the numbers game. I've been playing Dynasty fantasy football now. This is going on year 4, but I've been playing fantasy football since 2007 when LaDainian Tomlinson was the 101, and you had to do everything on spreadsheets.
Wow. Yeah, well, so if you have any, dynasty advice, maybe go to Caleb. Hopefully, me and Camden can be some help. If you need accounting advice, ask Camden because he's done it longer than me. I guess I'm kind of
No
useless.
tax questions, though.
What?
Tax questions.
Oh yeah, no, that's
No
fine. I
tax
did do
questions.
tax. I did a tax internship. So ask me any type of tax question about corporations, and I will know it probably 20% of the time. So that's maybe 10% more than Camden. That's all I got for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna kick this inaugural episode off with the 2022 wide receiver prospects coming up in this draft. We got in just a few weeks. It's really starting to heat up. I've seen lots of mock drafts on Twitter and done a couple myself, and I'm just really excited to see where some of these guys land. So we're gonna go ahead and go through our top 8 wide receivers for the class of 2022, and kind of explain why we like who we like. We have a composite score from all of us combined to show what trades and grades as a whole has. So I'll go ahead and start through mine. At the number 1 wide receiver for this class, I have Garrett Wilson. At 2, Drake London. 3, Jameson Williams. 4, Treylon Burks. 5, Chris Olave. 6, George Pickens. 7, Jahan Dotson. And 8, Christian Watson. I do want to put an asterisk there because I had Jameson Williams at 3, and then I actually saw something on Twitter today that I sent to Caleb, and I said I'm going to switch it. So now Treylon Burks is my 3, solely just because of that tweet. Might be a little wishy-washy, but I've been kind of going back and forth anyway. So Treylon Burks is 3 for me. It doesn't change composite scores, I don't think, at all. But yeah, Kevin, why don't you go ahead and give the people what they want?
All right, I'll preface this by saying two different things that are important for me. One, you shouldn't care about speed at all. Just based on my research, speed is one of the least correlated positions to success in the NFL at the wide receiver level. I mean, you could pull up a list of guys who ran right in that range of 4, 5, 6. You got Devontae Adams, Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Demaryius Thomas, Des Bryant. I'm sure I'm missing some other people, but Keenan Allen is in there. So to preface is that, and draft capital will, I think, change all of our rankings a whole bunch. But for now, here's where I land on guys. I have Treylon Burks at number 1, Drake London at number 2, Garrett Wilson at 3, Jameson Williams at 4, Chris Olave I know I said that wrong.
Olave, yeah, he
Yeah.
hates Wendell.
Ohio State fan. At 5, George Pickens at 6, David Bell at 7, and Jahad Dotson at 8. But I'm kind of on the Sky Moore train. I kind of think he hops Jahad Dotson for me, but I don't know. It's a toss-up, but okay.
Yeah, we got some time.
Yeah. For me, number 1, Drake London. 2, Garrett Wilson. 3, Traylon Burks. 4, Chris Olave. 5, Jameson Williams. 6, George Pickens. 7, Jahan Dotson. And 8, Sky Moore.
Sky Moore train, yeah. So if you add all those up, divide them out to figure out what would all of our wide receiver rankings be, it would look something like this. So at number 1, we have Drake London. 2, Garrett Wilson. 3, Traylon Burks. 4, Jameson Williams. 5, Chris Olave. 6, George Pickens. 7, Jahan Dotson. 8, David Bell. And coming at tied 9th is Sky Moore and Christian Watson. So we'll just go ahead and start it off with number 1 that we have, which is Drake London out of USC. Didn't have the chance to do much at the combine, but he comes in at about 6'3", 7/8", 219. So he's a pretty big dog. And Caleb's got him at his wide receiver 1 position for this class. So Caleb, why don't you go ahead and break down why you like Drake London?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people in the dynasty community have Traylon Burks number 1 just based on the athletic traits. But kind of after digging a little bit deeper, Drake London clearly became my number 1. When you're 6'4", I think what did we say, 225, you got that kind of Mike Evans type bod that everyone's comping him to. But even on a greater level, producing as a freshman at USC is really huge when you consider the fact that he was in the same wide receiver core as Amon St. Brown and Michael Pittman. 2 stud wide receivers now in the NFL, as we can see. So when you base it off the target competition where he, as a freshman, I think he had a 25% target share. And then going into this last year, I think it was at like 33%, which is absolutely incredible. It just kind of easily makes him the number 1 for me. I think a lot of people kind of measure him as just your deep ball threat. So the person that's going to catch the ball in the end zone, big body, go up and get it, Mike Williams type. Like we said, Mike Williams or Mike Evans, but I think he can do a lot more than that. I don't think he necessarily had the quarterback play to help him out, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean that is a good note. He doesn't have like a CJ Stroud like Olave or Wilson does, but he has that prototypical alpha type body like you're talking about, which I think when you're looking at wide receiver prospects, that's something that you want to look for, because it is a little bit harder to become a wide receiver 1 when you're 5'11", maybe 190 pounds, something like that, or it's certainly not impossible. But when you're bigger like that, predominantly more often are you going to be a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, which is what you want when you're going to be drafting at the 1-on-1 position. So I have. Yeah, I mean, I like him. I have him at, I believe I had my number 2 position. So, I mean, I was fine. I like Garrett Wilson a little bit more, which I'll get to in a second. But I'm going to there goes Caleb. But, yeah, Kim, do you have any thoughts on Drake London?
I mean, kind of just echo what Caleb said, I guess. That's why he's number 2 for me. I think for me, Traylon Burks just has more solid hands and it's a little bit better athletically. But, I mean, very similar players to me that are round out my top 2.
Yeah, for sure. And just to preface, in case anybody's not watching this, Caleb's had some internet issues lately. Spectrum hasn't been the greatest to him, so he's been dodging in and out. Currently using his data from his phone. So if he just doesn't, you just can't hear him. I'm just gonna let you know that he's on the struggle bus. So I'm glad that they got to talk about Drake London a little bit before he had issues. But we'll go ahead and move on to number 2. My favorite wide receiver 1 at class, Garrett Wilson, the Ohio State University, coming at 5'11", 6'8", 183 pounds, ran a 4.38 40, has a 36-inch vertical. He just is. I don't know what one word to describe him, but he's just an all around does almost everything, in my opinion, within his, God-given abilities in terms of how big. He's not a big guy. He's just under 6 foot, only 183 pounds, but he's got great wingspan. He has good catch radius. He's a fantastic route runner. He can go up and get it. He's got a great vert. He makes guys miss in the open field. He really just makes guys look silly. He had a benefit of having C.J. Stroud at quarterback, obviously, but even if he hadn't, I think he'd still be, a star in this wide receiver class. I personally like him, obviously the most. I don't think he's, in a tier of his own per se, but when you're looking at, the 102 or the 103 in, let's say, a 1 QB league, then you're looking for a safe option. And right now, I think Garrett Wilson's the safest option in this draft, other than maybe like a Breece Hall. So I saw Caleb's what is that, Joe Burrow? Oh my gosh. Yeah, Caleb's just came back on, got a little Joe Burrow wearing a LeBron jersey logo. So that's something. But yeah, I mean, I want to have a safe. I can't miss if you're playing if you're the 101 or not the 101. I guess you're probably going Breece Hall and 1 QB, but 102 or 103, I just can't miss. And Garrett Wilson seems like the safest prospect for me. Cayman, what do you think?
Fair. I think he's the safest for me, but I think London and Traylon Burks have more upside for me. So that's where I kind of land on that. I personally think Traylon Burks has a pretty safe floor too, but I mean, I think he's number 3 in our composite rankings. I want to say, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, we can. Maybe I was gonna ask Caleb if he wanted to get on this, but he just can't help himself right now with the internet issue. So we'll just go ahead and go on to number 3 with Traylon Burks, coming out of the University of Arkansas. Standing at 6'2", even 225 pounds, ran a 4.55 40, 33-inch vertical. I mean, he's just an overall animal. Why don't you go ahead and just touch on him, since that is your number 1 wide receiver in this class?
I mean, I feel like it's consensus number 1. It's not always a great thing to be consensus with a majority, but in this case, I mean, if you watch some film on him, it just pops to me how physically dominant he is. He just grabs everything out of the air. Obviously, he's not Calvin Johnson, but I mean, watching film on me, he just overpowers everyone, and his yards after the catch are just. I mean, he's
a yak monster.
The ball, and he's number 1 for me because I think wherever he lands, he's immediately going to be a red zone target. I think they're going to find different ways to get him the ball. I mean, I think the biggest concern with him for most people is speed and route running, and I touched on speed a little bit. I don't think it matters. I think he's fast enough. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, all those guys are about the same speed.
Right.
You can argue Devontae Adams is a way better route runner, but
yeah,
I mean, he's got a lot of time to develop that, and I just think the way the NFL now is, a lot of times anyway, it's get your playmakers the ball. It's not run a 20-yard route or whatnot. So I think he gains an immediate target share and gets the ball and has a chance to contribute right away. And I think his upside is very high if he does figure out some of the route running and whatnot.
Yeah, I think the difference between Burks and Wilson is he has I want to say unlimited upside. I don't think that Wilson has a certain ceiling where I can't see him as a wide receiver 1, because I think I could, but he just doesn't have, like I said, that prototypical alpha body type that. Yeah, especially now where you're looking at the NFL, where it seems like they're moving more towards yards after the catch. I think that Burks gives you that, and he had huge games, and he's playing in the SEC. He's one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. It's not like he's playing in some Power 5 conference. He's doing against the best team, especially Alabama. He had a great game against Alabama. So yeah, I just think that there were a few games where he didn't show up at all. I think one was against Georgia. Obviously, that's a very great defense, but
the Georgia game too. The way Georgia plays, they like to dominate time of possession, and I mean, who knows? They could have been doubling him. I actually didn't watch that game, but I'm not as concerned about games like that since he's playing in the SEC all year round. Personally,
Sure. Yeah, and yeah, I mean he's a really bright student. I believe he's close to a 4.0 student. I feel like you know, he cares about the game. I think watching him, like I said, he's a yak monster. I am a little worried. I feel like at times it might come off like he doesn't care a ton. Whereas you listen to like Garrett Wilson talk about football, and his IQ level on football is extremely high. He just seems like all around like not that Treylon Burks is not a good person because I'm sure that he is, but Garrett Wilson just comes off as like that very sharp, likable, like he hits all the things. I think Burks and some of the interviews I've watched hasn't quite had that likability. But again, yeah, those are little tidbits here and there. It's not like you can tell a whole something from somebody based off of a few interviews. So that's yeah, I think he'll be. I've seen a lot of comps to AJ Brown. I think he's probably a little slower than AJ Brown. I don't quite see that.
I kind of like the physical type of play where I feel like AJ Brown's really good at just getting the ball and dominating yards after catch.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit clunkier and slower than AJ Brown, but I don't absolutely hate it. But while we're in the SEC, let's go ahead and go over number 4 on the list, Jameson Williams, out of University of Alabama, coming in at 6'1.5" 179 pounds, and didn't get to do very much at the combine because of the ACL tear that happened against Georgia in the national championship game, I believe it was. So, I mean, let's see. I have him. I just said I moved him down to 4. I had him at 3. I think the reason why I'm a little bit higher on him than Caleb's got him at. He's gone below Chris Olave. You've got him at the same spot at 4. I hear people on Twitter sometimes talk about, well, he's had a late breakout. He didn't break out till this year. It's his 3rd year. He's early to declare, but he couldn't get in the wide receiver room at Ohio State. He's behind Garrett Wilson, behind Chris Olave, behind Jackson Smith-Njigba. Couldn't get in there, and really, we'll really never know what the relationship was between Jameson Williams and the coaching staff. It could have just been they didn't see eye to eye, whatever situational thing. Obviously, it wasn't because he wasn't talented, because he just transferred to Alabama, So what do you can't really say it was because he wasn't talented enough. I mean, he's super quick in and out of cuts. He's smooth down the sideline, deep ball threat. He gets with a good quarterback. I could see him, because the injury maybe falling down to the end of the first. And I mean, there's a couple guys that, have a couple teams have a couple picks that notoriously are pretty good, in the Packers and the Chiefs, that, I don't know, maybe Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't be too upset with that. Or I don't know if he'll fall all the way to the Chiefs. But one thing doing mock drafts here and there, one interesting spot could be the Bills. We were doing a mock draft, and I saw, maybe trading up a couple spots, maybe like switching with the Packers, something like that, and grabbing a guy like Jameson Williams to throw with Josh Allen and throw on other side of Stephon Diggs. That would be quite interesting. So there's quite a few different places he could go. I think he will slip a little bit because of the ACL injury. It'll be quite a while before he'll start. I think it'll be maybe midway through the season.
Yep.
So tough to decide this year per se, but that's why we play Dynasty.
To touch on your point there, I think that's Caleb's main reason he has him low. To speak for Caleb, since he's not here, is
right.
He might not even play for the first 6 games, and then by the time he does, is he really going to be into it? Is he going to be 100% healthy? How's it that first year could be kind of rough, and you might not get a lot of production out of him in the sense of maybe some of the other picks in the wide receiver room. But for me, I love him. Kind of echo Noah. I mean, he just went out there and he destroyed Georgia in both of those games from what I watched. And then Cincinnati, before I think he got hurt inevitably and tore his ACL, he was having a pretty good game. And Cincinnati, I think they had 2 DBs that are going to be potentially maybe first-round picks, really, really solid DBs who
Sauce Gardner.
I think their safety is going to go top 5 based on latest stuff I saw. But I mean, Georgia, obviously, another defense was being touted one of the best defenses in college football history there for a while. So, I mean,
absolutely.
he's playing in the SEC. He's doing well. I'm not that worried about when a guy breaks out or whatnot. To me, has all the attributes to be successful. It's just a matter of weighing if you can wait on him to not give you a super productive first year.
Yeah, and I was kind of hoping after that happened, he'd be able to slide down to maybe 107, 108, 109 in one QB leagues. But as we have all these months in between the playoff, or I guess playoffs and college football championship and the rookie drafts, it seems like he slowly keeps getting higher and higher because people were like, it's an ACL tear, but this is dynasty. And I was kind of hoping that people would have the, shiny new toy effect. We're like, I don't want to play with him right now because he's hurt and I'll just get somebody else. But, you just have to realize that this is dynasty, and this isn't, let's say he misses half the first year. Okay, well, imagine, you don't want to skip on a guy that misses half first year at the 107, 108, 109 if he's there just because of that, where you might be a wide receiver 2 for 4 to 5 years, or wide receiver 1 a couple of those years. So I think that's important to keep in mind as we're moving forward. So on the other side of Garrett Wilson at Ohio State is Chris Olave, coming at number 5 in our rankings. Chris Olave weighed in at 187 pounds. He's 6 foot, even 3/8 inch. Ran a 4.3940 originally. It was like a 4.26, I think. And he was running on fire. It was some of those times were a little suspicious. They ended up eventually correcting it to 4.39. And he had 32-inch vertical. But to me, the reason why he's not sneaking up there, I know that a lot of draft analysts have him pretty high. I could see him going maybe maybe second or third in this draft at wide receiver. I personally just saw him, and I know he has a good route tree, but I saw him more as a deep ball threat, and I don't know if that's just because of Garrett Wilson on the other side of him, and then obviously Jackson Smith-Njigba. But I just felt like the majority of his games that were good were just off of big deep ball threats, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if he gets paired with a quarterback that just maybe can't throw those deep ball threats, then I could be a little more concerned than I could with a couple other these players like Traylon Burks, where he's just a yak monster. You just throw behind line of scrimmage and he kind of does what he does. And I feel like Garrett Wilson could be the same way. He doesn't have that physicality, but he just jukes people out of their shoes. So I think that's probably why I don't have Olave any higher than I do.
Guys don't wear shoes on the football field and be cleats, juke them out of their cleats.
Well, I mean, I don't know. That is what it is.
Only one football player who's out there and Roshi runs, and I'll
I mean, cleats are shoes. It's a type of shoe, so. But yeah, I mean, what do you think about Chris Olave?
My concern with him, he falls to 5 for me, just because, kind of to echo you a little bit, I think he's very speed reliant. I think a lot of the hype comes around his speed, and I don't know if I've personally seen enough other than the speed that gets me super excited about him. I mean, speed is like the new thing that everyone loves because you might get the next Tyreek Hill, but I mean, there's plenty of really fast guys who get really great draft capital who severely under succeed, I would argue. The upside's there for me, but I personally am not super big on him.
Yeah. I don't know, and that's where I mean, obviously we aren't talent evaluators. We're just trying to find guys that get put up dynasty football, fantasy football points. We're not looking to see who's going to be the best wide receiver for football purposes. So I mean, he might have more intangibles. I didn't watch his pass protection or anything like that, so he might have more intangibles that I just don't see that maybe other teams do. But yeah, I mean. The one other thing that concerned me was his hands. I was watching a couple of his games, and it seemed like there's a lot of times where I felt like he probably should have caught balls. I feel like Garrett Wilson, or like another guy we're going to get to, is in Jahan Dotson. Those types of guys that have great hands. I just didn't see it from Olave. There's some times that were like, wow, that's a really good catch. There's other times where I was like, man, that I really felt like he should have caught that, and he didn't. And so that's just – what's that?
CD Lamb vibes.
Yeah, well, and it's just one of those things where it's not like terrible, but it's just one of that's why he falls to 5. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind getting him at the back end of, 1 QB, 12 team at the 109, 110, 111, something like that, by any means. So I think he's a solid pick. I know NFL evaluators like him a lot, so we'll have to see, where that draft capital lies. But coming at number 6, we have George Pickens out of Georgia. He came in at 6'3", 2/8", 195. One thing to note that we talked about a little bit previously is he does have the smallest hands out of everybody in these top 10 wide receivers. His hands were, it was 8 inches, 8 6/8 inches, which is considerably smaller than anybody else. A little weird, I guess, for a guy that's 6'3", has such a great wingspan. But
do want to chime in here and say, for some people, even 8 inches is way too big, and they prefer the smaller hands.
I mean, I won't comment on that, but he he ran a 4.47 40, I believe I have on here. So he's not slow by any means. I feel like he's a great athlete. He came in, he has great pedigree. He was supposed to be kind of a superstar, wide receiver one, really, of this class back when he came in as a freshman. Then he's had some injury issues towards ACL, so that's one thing to note. And he's really not getting back on the field and shown a ton. I mean, Georgia doesn't throw the ball a lot. They typically run a ton. I mean, you have James Cook and Zamir White there. In the past, they've had Nick Chubb and DeAndre Swift, Sony Michel, just to name a few. So they aren't going to be super pass heavy. So it's really difficult to see, what he provides, just because of the lack of usage and the injury. So all those things kind of just leave a big question mark. But I think he could be a really good steal at the beginning of second rounds.
Yeah, I mean, he's the biggest boomer bust for me. I could see him being the number 1 overall wide receiver in this class, and I can see him kind of not doing anything just based on he has all the physical attributes. He was a monster his freshman year, but then he's coming off an ACL injury. Georgia doesn't throw the ball a lot, so you don't have maybe as great as of an evaluation as you do with a guy like Treylon Burks.
Yeah.
So I mean, I like his upside. If you're in a spot where you need someone you're going to hit on for sure, though, I don't know if he would be my pick there. But if you can afford the boomer bust, I think he's a great pick, especially depending on draft capital. I mean,
yeah, and like I said, I agree with that. He's a big boomer bust. I think that if you're in a position where you have this pick, maybe if it's the early second for some reason, you're a contender, and you don't need a guy, this is a great person to pick because, like you said, he could be one of the top wide receivers in this class. He was a couple years ago, and if you can have that risk, that I think that reward, that juice is worth the squeeze, in my opinion.
Yep, I agree.
So I think if you're going, if you're the early, second round because you kept your picks and you have an early first and you're trying to rebuild, I'm not super confident in picking this. I think I'd rather go with the next guy on the list, number 7, Jahan Dotson, as a safer pick. Jahan Dotson came out of Penn State, 5'10", 5/8 inch. He was at 178, so a little bit on the lighter side. Ran a 4.43, which is pretty decent, 36-inch vertical. So he's got some hops. I don't have any particularly severe knocks on this guy. I think the biggest reason why he's not high on this list is because I just don't see him being okay, you have George Pickens. Like you said, he's a big boomer bust. He could be that wide receiver 1 in this class, or at least a top guy. I could see him being the constant wide receiver 2 in the NFL in general. I just don't know about Dotson. He's quick and out of cuts. He's a pretty good route runner and he's got good hands, but when you watch him, I just don't get super excited about it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because he goes to Penn State or what it is, but I just am not a huge fan. I know that I've seen quite a few people on Twitter that really love him. I just am not there with it. When I watch it, I honestly kind of get bored.
Sure.
So no offense to Jahan, but I'm sure he'd be a fine wide receiver in the NFL, but I'm just not super sold on him right now. Maybe I need to go back and watch more tape, but he just, yeah, I don't know. If you so, I have his 3 cone, ran a 7.28 3 cone. For reference, you have David Bell, who we'll get to in a second, who's extremely slow, ran a 7.14 3 cone. So even David Bell has better lateral agility than Jahan Dotson does. And Traylon Burks ran the exact same 3 cone. And Traylon Burks is, I mean, significantly bigger. I mean, you're talking like almost 50 pounds bigger and like 3 or 4 inches. And he has the same lateral agility as Jahan Dotson. So I just don't, I'm not a huge fan of him. I don't know.
I like the speed in hands combo. I think he could be a solid. I think he's a slot guy. I don't think he's um, a wideout. But
Right. Yeah.
I like his upside. I could see him in like a Calvin Ridley type role, maybe potentially. But
Yeah. I don't know. I can't really think of any comps that are any good. It's not, I've never been able to make any good comps to anything. I just see each guy for what it is.
Calvin
But
Ridley's a little bigger than him. But
yeah.
just that's
So
what I think of that. Like,
it's a skinnier guy that,
yeah,
yeah, maybe run the slot that, um,
it's
yeah,
quick.
I
Yeah,
don't know. I'm just not a huge fan. Might as well stay in the Big Ten. We'll go to number 8 here in David Bell,
love
coming
David
out of Purdue. Yeah, your slow wide receiver here at 6 foot and 7/8 inch, almost got 6'1", 212 pounds. Ran a flaming 4.6540 at the combine, which everyone seemed to hate. I don't really understand why necessarily, just because if you ever watch his tape, he's not fast. I mean, he's really not fast at all. And it's not, to his detriment because he still gets it done. He's just one of those guys that gets it done. And I really don't know how, because watching it, I mean, he's a decent route runner, but he's kind of slow. He's got pretty decent hands. He had a 33-inch vertical, so he's not a kind of go up and get it guy, even though he's about 6'1". I just, I don't know. You can have, you know what, you talk about your slow receiver because I don't have anything else.
I like him. I think he just gets it done. He got it done in high school, growing up about 15 minutes away from where I live right now. He gets it done at the college level. Um, he destroyed Ohio State. I think
Yeah, yeah.
Caleb was talking about how he was at that game actually.
Caleb's a big Ohio State fan, so it's a shame that he
I
isn't going to talk about Olave or Wilson.
I just think he gets it done. And to me, as far as he faded after his combine performance, I'm hitting the buy button because kind of like what you touched on. If you were like super surprised by any of those numbers or like didn't see that one coming, I
Right,
don't think you knew what David Bell's game is. And if
right.
you know David Bell, to me, I just see him translating my player comp that I think he's the most similar role is like Hunter Renfro, or like Hunter Renfro. I think he was undrafted, if I'm correct, and like never was a guy who's like, oh, this guy's really good, but just like gets it done. I mean, before they got Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfro was getting 10 plus targets every game and just like
Right.
catching everything. Even when you knew it was going to him, he was getting it done. That's kind of how I see David Bell. I don't think he's going to be an alpha wide receiver, but I think he could be a really solid, like, you need a third down and someone's going to get you a third down when it's 3rd and 6. David Bell's your guy.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, I mean, we touched on it. I wasn't expecting anything great coming out of the combine. It's not something that, you know, it's fun. It's a fun thing to do in the middle of March or the beginning of March that, we haven't had football. It's cool to see each other, see everybody else go up against each other. But I'm not gonna put a ton of stock in him running a 4.65, even though that's gonna slide him down. I don't know how he's gonna fare at. I've seen him all over the place in rookie mocks. So I've seen the back ends of, if you're doing like super flex, the back ends of like the second round, like 210 area, and I've seen him go in early seconds. Right now, I think he's really down. So yeah, I think if you get him in the middle of the back end in the second round, I mean, I don't hate that. I'm not a big fan of his, but I think at the value that you're getting at that point, a Bolitnikoff award finalist, I just I'm fine with it. So yeah, I mean that's it. He is what he is. Hopefully he can still get done at the NFL level. But I'm sad that Kale's not here for Sky Moore at tied for number 9 in our rankings. Because he was pretty high on Sky Moore. I don't have a ton. I haven't watched a ton of tape on Sky Moore. I don't think you've gotten to watch very much either. So yeah, I don't know. I'm fine with him. He's out of Western Michigan at 5'9", 5/8 inch, 195. He ran a 4.4, 140. One key note, since we're talking about hands, he does have the biggest hands out of everybody that we have talked about so far, including the next guy in Christian Watson. He's got 10, 10 inches, 10 and 2/8 inch hands. I don't know how to say that. He's got the biggest hands of anybody, and that's including, I mean, guys that are 6 foot, like Christian Watson at 6'4", just barely outdoes Christian Watson. So,
Big
I
big
mean,
hands aren't everything. Some people prefer smaller hands.
I mean, yeah, well,
How
we're
you
not gonna
use your
hand shame.
hands
Yeah,
doesn't matter, you know?
that's true. We're not gonna hand shame, but I just wanted to put it out there that he can grab balls better than maybe some other guys can with those big hands. So take that for what it's worth. Um, I haven't, like I said, I haven't want to watch a lot of tape on him. I think that he could be a good sleeper in some of these drafts that, maybe they're not listening to, podcasts like this, or they're not listening to other podcasts about Dynasty, or they haven't been on Twitter, where they're like, okay, they haven't done a ton of research. That's why you want to listen to podcasts like this, where we kind of break down these rookies and tell you, what we like about them, what we don't like about them, where we have in our rankings, and you be able to find guys like Sky Moore then hopefully middle, maybe back in the second round. But at this point, if people are doing research, it's probably towards the front end of the second round. So one thing that I would think would be interesting is I could see him maybe scooting up there to the first round of the NFL draft. You have the Chiefs in the pack, 1/8 inch. Man, I can't wait to stop saying that. 208 pounds. I mean, it's the second biggest hands. We're in a 4.36. I just want to 4.36 at 208 pounds at 6'4" is just ridiculous. And he had a 38.5 inch vertical. I mean, this dude is ridiculous. I don't know where he came from. I mean, North Dakota State got he's with Trey Lance for a little bit, but you just don't make those guys very often. He's just a freak. I don't I don't know exactly how great his hands are. I think that's maybe one knock on him. There's a couple times if you go back and look and see, drops. I think that's one issue that he's had. But he had a great time in the Senior Bowl. I think he was probably the star of the Senior Bowl coming out of there. I believe that was in February or something like that. And since then, his stock's kind of risen. He's one of those guys that you might see at the beginning of the second round of the NFL draft and maybe the end of the first with the Chiefs and the Packers. That would just be that'd be such a great pairing for him or Sky Moore.
How big is
So,
this guy's hands?
how big is his hands?
Yes.
He's got the second biggest hands out of
No.
everybody. Yeah,
All right.
no. He's got 1/8 inch hands. So just behind Sky Moore. So you have these two non-power 5. Maybe it's just the non-power 5 guys. I don't know. Maybe to
Big
get into
hands. Yeah.
some of these big schools, you just got to have smaller hands. I don't know what the issue is, but yeah, I mean, you have any thoughts on Christian Watson?
I like the upside of where he's being projected at now. The higher he goes, the less I might fade him. Just in general, if guys start falling who are originally really hot, I mean, I don't mind going against what the mass majority is because I think that's how you'll typically win. The mass majority isn't going to be right all the time until you find sleepers. But
Right.
I mean, I drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown last year, not to pat myself in the back or anything, but
Where'd you draft him at?
2.5, I want to say. So
you're at the what?
2.5.
2.5. Okay.
Yeah. Drafted Bateman at the 1.9, 1.8, somewhere in there, and Amon-Ra St. Brown at the 2.5.
Yeah.
Man.
No, those are two pretty good wide receiver rookies from last year. So, yeah. Okay. Well, let's give a scenario. So we got, we're the Chiefs. We're the back end of the first round. We pick Christian Watson. Are you taking Christian Watson over a guy like George Pickens, who had number 6?
Depends where George Pickens goes. Where does George Pickens go in this hypothetical situation?
I think he's probably gonna. I do not see him as a first round draft pick in my opinion. And as a Bears fan, I really would enjoy him landing on the other side of Darnell Mooney for Justin Fields. So we'll just say for
Hate
the
that. Hammer.
we'll just say for this hypothetical situation that he goes to number 39 at the Bears.
I'd fade
Great
him
spot.
so hard.
Great
He's
spot.
getting faded way
George
harder than
Pickens
my hair got faded last Saturday.
George Pickens is going to get faded if he goes to the Bears. Is that what you're
Anyone who
saying?
goes to the Bears is getting faded. Let me tell you that right now.
No,
No.
I think that is honestly. I feel like it's a likely situation. I don't think Christian Watson might go that high, but yeah, I mean, anybody with Pat Mahomes, really out of any of these guys, I think would be a fantastic matchup. So
Yep.
or Aaron Rodgers, which I mean, who wouldn't be? But especially as a rookie, that's just gonna really shoot up the draft boards. So
Sure.
yeah, I mean that was a shame that Caleb couldn't give his input on some of these guys, especially Sky Moore, because I know he likes him a lot, and some of the Ohio State guys he's pretty familiar with. But hopefully he can figure out his internet issues because
Sounds like it's not his fault. Spectrum just in the
yeah,
general
they had an
area.
outage. I mean, it had it last night, and it still isn't fixed.
So if you watch this video, email Spectrum
yeah,
and say, what the heck?
Email the Northern Indiana Spectrum. So I'm throwing Caleb's location out there. Email them and please tell them how important it is for Caleb to be on Trades and Grades podcast, so you can all hear what his thoughts are. But
And if you do find Caleb in person, if you would just like give him a smack on the back of the head for me, $5.
Yeah, there you go. If you can find Caleb near me,
interesting.
we will give you $5.
Yeah.
Sorry, Caleb. So yeah, that's all we got for you. Appreciate you listening to the end of the first ever Trades and Grades podcast. Hopefully, there's many more. But yeah, I appreciate it. It's Noah and Camden, and Caleb signing off. Hope you guys have a good rest of your guys' day.
Thank you.